there would have the opportunity to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. If that does not reflect the heart of God, I don't know what does. And I'm so thankful to have them back here today because we need reminding. We need reminding as a church that that's our mission. Our mission is not to build a new worship center. Our mission is not to build a dynasty and a kingdom here. Our mission is to get on board with what God wants to do. And God has one desire, and that's to reach this world with his gospel and to see people saved by that same gospel. That ought to be the entire reason we wake up every morning and we go to bed every night. It ought to be what we live for. And I'm so glad that God's put people in our path to show us what that looks like. So Pete, come share.
I don't know what else to say. I think that's about it. Thanks for coming this morning. I don't know. I always think Faith Baptist is like faith is it's a noun and it's a verb, but I have full to the end and just faithful. Also, I've noticed that as I get older, the weight of God's grace that he's piled on me, I feel it, and more. And sometimes that weight comes out through my eyes. So thanks for pushing a little more weight on me. So by God's grace, I'll get through this, and you'll be patient and listen to me talk. I'm not an orator. I'm not a great preacher like Jamie. But God has given us a story, and so I'm here to share that with you. And some of you have been here since the start. 2014, this kid walked through the door, and the pilot, who wasn't me, forgot his briefcase, and I was thankful. And then really what cemented it is Dave McCleary came back, and I came with Dave. And we spent, I think, 5-6 days here, and we did it right. We did a missions at the airport right. And that was kind of sealed the deal for us, being a partner with Faith Baptist, or Faithful Baptist. I'm just going to go through this, and some of you know the stories already, but my name is Pete Young. I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm married to one wife. It's very important in the African context. I only have one wife, and together we have 4 children, a daughter-in-law and a son-in-law now, 2 bonus children who are amazing. I'm a pilot with Africa Inland Mission, which is the flight department, or with AMER, which is the flight department of Africa Inland Mission, and we mainly focus on East and Central Africa. Let me see if I can, look at that. We began our service spending 1 year in Nairobi, which is down here. It's the capital of Kenya. And then we spent 2 years in northern Kenya in a tribe amongst the Turkana people. And we served up there. In 2018, they closed that base, and we moved to Uganda in a little town called Arua with the Lugabara people as our hosts. And but I haven't always been a pilot, and it wasn't my dream as a child. I was an electrical engineer for 13 years, working behind a desk, and the Holy Spirit began to stir in my heart. And I spent about a year trying to figure out what God was trying to say to me. About a year in, I was listening to a sermon series on fasting, and I had never thought about that before, not been taught about it much. Grew up in the church, but really was absent from my learning anyway. Maybe I wasn't listening, but this time God caught my attention. And I said, okay, I'm not going to go all in, but I'll just do lunch fasts. And I'll skip lunch and I'll go to a park and pray. And I just prayed a simple little prayer, and I said, God, if I don't say no, what do you want me to do? And then just listen. What do you got? And it was like Monday and Tuesday were silent. I was like listening to the birds and whatever else, and there was nothing. God wasn't speaking anything. And then on Wednesday, just a passing thought of missionary aviation passed through my head. I dismissed it. I kind of went, that's not for me. But Thursday it was louder, and by Friday I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I came home and told Tia, who hadn't been, she didn't know I was doing this, and I said, what do you think if we look into mission aviation? She laughed, and she's like, okay, let's see what we can find online. And I wasn't new to aviation. I was a recreational pilot, just flew for fun. I had actually built a couple airplanes, but always for recreation. I wasn't even new to mission aviation, as I had a JARS pilot furlough in the church I grew up in. So it wasn't strange for me, but for us to do it, it was like, nah, that's for other people to do. And if you ask Tia, she believed it was a trust exercise, like an Abraham Isaac type of deal. You know, you get up to the mountain and God's going to be like, no, I'm just kidding. You don't have to go. I just wanted to see if you were listening and obedient. But it was not a trust exercise, and he did not say no. And in January 2016, we stepped onto African soil for the first time in our lives. And we've been serving him faithfully through AMER ever since. And I reflect on that story, and I think of these other people from the Bible who were sent to work for his kingdom. And some examples are in Abraham in Genesis 22, and God calling Jacob in Genesis 46, Moses in Exodus 3, Samuel in 1 Samuel 3, and maybe the most poignant for me is the instance in Isaiah 6:8 when God calls Isaiah into service. And it says, "Then I heard a voice from the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here am I. Send me.'" And our journey led us to AMER, which exists so that missionaries can rest assured, stay focused, and go the distance to see Christ-centered churches among all African peoples with a focus on the unreached. And to see those churches grow to maturity. Resting assured means that if a missionary needs to be evacuated for health or security reasons, we can typically be airborne in about 30 minutes from getting a call. About a year ago, South Sudan became unstable, and it still is actually quite unstable at the moment. And we spent 3 days pulling missionaries out of South Sudan so they didn't get caught in any dangerous situations. And in 2025, we did over 40 medical evacuations, and some of those are partnered with an organization called AMREF. And AMREF offers medical evacuation insurance to travelers, short-term travelers, and when they run out of airplanes to pick people up, we'll get a call and we'll jump into action with them. But the rest of them are just missionaries in the field who are ill or hurt or need to get to medical care. And although we aren't medically trained first responders and don't have much medical equipment on board other than maybe some antibacterial spray and a Band-Aid, we are able to pray with them and talk to the great physician and get them to much needed services. Staying focused means that we can transport missionaries by air into places that God has called them, saving them days of ground transport. Many of the ministry locations we serve are difficult to get to because of either bad roads or no roads at all. And oftentimes, what could be a 4-day trip over rough and hostile terrain maybe takes a few hours by airplane. Staying focused also means that we can bring much needed supplies and technical know-how to a mission station. And we often get emails containing a shopping list from a missionary, things that we can buy in our little town in Arua, Uganda, and bring them to a mission station in South Sudan or Central African Republic. And we know that we're really partnered with an organization when we know roughly how much coffee they go through in a month, or maybe their favorite brand of jelly. And I've loaded some pretty crazy things into our caravan, both our airplanes over the years, from well pipe to mattresses, animals like goats and chickens. And one time I loaded a cement mixer and a brick maker into our caravan. And I think that cement mixer is probably 750 pounds, and the brick maker was 900 pounds. And it shows up at the airport on top of a taxi van. And I was like, how did you get that up there? And they said, well, we used a crane, of course. And I was like, I don't have a crane. But thankfully, there are off-duty airport security police that love to help. And so we enlisted 6 of them to help get it off of the van and into the airplane. Pretty sure we didn't even scratch the airplane. So that was a good thing. We started a program a few years ago called Remote Missionary Support, and this is where we get a call from missionaries out in the bush, and they have mechanical issues that they want fixed or need fixed, and so we get the list, we try to buy all the supplies we need, and we load an airplane with a mechanic or 2 and the pilot, and we head out to a remote location and fix things for them. We've fixed fences and land cruisers and solar systems and well pumps. Just about anything that a missionary has, we've been able to fix. And I don't know, this is a personal theory that I have, and Jamie may be an exception, but I see people on a spectrum of kinds where some people are really good with people, and some people are really good with things. And our missionaries are really good with people, and our pilots and mechanics are really good with things. If you put me in front of if I had to evangelize day in and day out in a public setting, I think I'd wither away. But if I'm in front of a broken solar system, that's good for me. So I've seen Jamie do both. So he's an anomaly. I couldn't do that. But when we can work together, it really is a picture of the body of Christ, where you're using how God gifted you to further his kingdom, and it doesn't always have to look the same. And you just have to think, what has God gifted me with, and how can I use that to further his kingdom? 5 years ago, we asked our ministry partners that we fly for what benefits they saw from AMER, and a majority of them just listed that our service allows them longevity, or going what we call going the distance. And we kind of say, if we can lighten the load and support and encourage those on the front lines of our mission field in East and Central Africa, and that leads them to staying longer and serving deeper and reaching more people, then we've really accomplished our purpose. We currently have 6 airplanes, 3 Cessna 206s and 3 Cessna Caravans, or the 208, serving our ministry partners out of 2 bases. The Nairobi base is where most of our maintenance gets done. It's located in the capital of Kenya, and also a lot of admin work. I don't even know, I'd say it's almost 50% admin work. We do so much paperwork involved with flying that it does shock a lot of the new pilots coming out. You mean I'm not flying all the time? No, we have a lot of paperwork. So that gets done in Nairobi too. But one of the new initiatives we've had in Nairobi was that the church in Africa, especially in Kenya, is pretty big. It's the denomination that Africa Inland Mission started is several million people, and the last I counted, they've sent, I think, 3 or 4 missionaries, and so we're seeing that, and we're trying to break their stigma of, well, it's the white people who do it, or it's the foreigners, the Australians or Europeans or whatever, and we're like, no, God has called everybody to the mission field. This isn't just a Westerner thing. This is all of us together. And so we started an initiative where we can help them get out into the mission field with people from churches. And so we'll have a mission, we'll attend a missions conference and say, actually, we have this service where we can get you up to northern Kenya and you can see the work going on up there. So we've seen a lot of excitement, and that's really exciting to see them catching the vision of how that could be a part of it. Arua, Uganda is at the doorstep. It's our other base of where most of our ministry partners serve in South Sudan and Central African Republic, and where the majority of our flight time happens. Last year, we served over 50 ministry partners, ranging from church planting and disciple-making ministries of AIM, SIM, Cush for Christ, Peter Swan, and many others, to the Bible translation work of DLPI, which is Pioneer Bible Translators, also to the medical evacuations of Amref, and to humanitarian disaster relief of Samaritan's Purse, Africa Mission Healthcare, World Mission, and World Vision. These are all people that we flew for last year and many years in the past. One of our ministry partners, Voice of the Martyrs, has been active in Central African Republic. In 2017, a group from the north came down into an area of Central African Republic that we've had missionaries in for almost 100 years. And most of the Christians in the area fled to the bush and hid while their homes were destroyed. VOM asked us if we could fly in supplies for them, and we've been doing that ever since. Our communications team made a video of one of those week-long flights that I did in 2013, and so let's take a look. The Voice of the Martyrs representative had a great meeting with the officials in Zemio yesterday, and they said it is peaceful, they want the people back, and so today... Here behind our mighty caravan here in Obo, Central African Republic, and just at the start of a supply run here that we do for Voice of the Martyrs. And what we do is we are bringing relief supplies to people who have been displaced by war. And invaders came in 2017 and basically were killing Christians. Those people have run to the bush and have been hiding out ever since. The UN is trying to get them to come back now. They're saying it's safe. And so part of our runs here this time are to check that out. And so we're going to go to the mission station that was overrun by the invaders and destroyed. And we're going to land at the airstrip there and see the condition and see boots on the ground, how things are actually shaping up. Today's supplies are going to encourage the people who are hiding about maybe 25, 30 kilometers away, encouraging the people to come back and rebuild their life in Zemio. To me, this is encouraging. And it's a way that we can show reconciliation and people can show forgiveness and the church can shine in ways that it's supposed to. All right, I'm all loaded for my third trip to Zemio from Obo. There's behind me some cooking pots and some lids and some blankets and some clothes, all sorts of stuff. Full weight, gross operations here. Peaceful, they want the people back, and so today it's a good day. You could tell I was feeling some of that weight in that video. At the end of the video, a retired AIM Air pilot named Ron, who's right in the middle there, had built that runway and lived there for many years in the 80s and 90s. He was back in the U.S. in the final days of his battle with cancer. and I was just sending him videos of the mission station and the runway, and his wife was just telling me that it just made him smile when a lot of other things didn't. And it's just a huge blessing to be able to be a part of, share that with him as he prepared to meet the Lord. His life was constantly a testimony to me of someone who repeatedly said, "Here am I, send me." When he retired as a pilot, he was like, "I don't feel like my work here is done." And he said, "God, what do you want?" And so he built houses for missionaries in Africa, in South Sudan, until the day he was diagnosed with cancer. Just a real servant. This term started with a lot of flying. For me, in 2022, we were down to only 4 operational pilots for about 4 months, and we still had 6 airplanes and the same amount of flight requests coming through. So it was a stressful time, as I also was the AMER Director of Operations running the flight department. And so in late 22 and early 23, we got more pilots in, allowed me to focus more on running the flight department. But it also allowed me to spend some time flying for Samaritan's Purse. AMER and SP have been working in the same area of Africa since the 90s. And in fact, we shared our hangar with SP up until 2012 when they moved about 150 miles north and built their own hangar. They've been short on pilots for a few years, and with our newly expanded pilot staff, I was able to step in and help them out, which was easy because we fly to the same runways in the same caravans. And I very much enjoyed sharing in their ministry as they bring help and healing in the name of Jesus. But up till now, I've only talked about myself, and let's stop doing that and let's talk about Tija. She has really what sums up her role, as she's been available for what God has for her. And he has used her in some amazing ways. She loves to work with teams and see them work in a healthy and efficient manner. She worked to define our organization and organize our personnel in Arua so that we can serve more effectively. This term, she's held the position of housing coordinator, hospitality coordinator, and also team leader. She also loves hosting missionaries that are traveling through, and she created a place of rest in our guest house that people love to come to for some much needed respite from their work. Something that Tija saw as a need was to be able to give other missionary parents a weekly break. And at any given time, there were 3 or so families that Tija would provide an afternoon of childcare for, like one family on Monday, one on Tuesday, another on Thursday. And she would have their kids over and do crafts and play games and read books and make snacks to give the parents a break. Now, without any other family around to do these things, Tija was able to step in and share the gift of free time with other gospel workers in our community. And of course, she manages our household. And we have 3 workers, 3 people that work for us, 2 watchmen. You can see Robert and Patrick there, and one lady that works in our home, Susan. And it may not sound like much, but in a communal village society, like Arua is, it is a lot of work to be a part of 3 different families. To represent our family, Tija has gone to weddings and funerals and hospitals as much as needed. And it's all part of living together in community. And we really see our workers as family, not employees. And our children. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, "Don't you have little kids?" And I was like, "No, that was an old picture." Our children are old. We're so close to Jamie and Jill's life stage that I'll run through them real quick here. Joel is our oldest, and he's in the middle there. This was at Joel's wedding to Justine in August of 24. And they're currently living in the North Metro of Minneapolis-St. Paul, and they have a house, and he's has a good job as a software engineer. No kids yet. We're not pushing, but they just got a puppy. So we're like, we'll take the steps. We'll go slowly. We'll work on that. Our second born, Seth, is just finishing, actually graduates in 1 month from this weekend. So he graduates with a degree in food science and culinary arts. And so he wants to make sustainable food and do it on a grassroots level, just helping local farmers get their food to market, that type of thing. And so our next child, Leah, she graduated from Rift Valley Academy. That's the high school that all of our kids went to. She graduated in 23 and she just finished her associate's degree at the University of Northwestern in St. Paul in environmental science. But on December 20th, she married Isaac, who we say is like missionary royalty. His great-grandparents were AIM missionaries in Africa, and so his grandparents were, his parents, so we're like, Leah, you're kind of like marrying into the big deal. She's like, Dad, settle down. But they are currently living in Spokane, and he is at Moody as he wants to be a missionary pilot. Go figure. Don't know how that happened, but, and our youngest, Selah, graduated from Rift Valley Academy, and we realized that we had kids going there for 9 years, and we were like, wow, that was an amazing feat, and God's faithfulness on display to us through that. And we actually just asked them, we're like, how did you like that? Because it is a boarding school, and every single one of them loved it for different reasons, but they all had great experiences there, which we are so thankful for. She's living with us in northeast metro area of Minneapolis, St. Paul right now, and she's attending a community college next year. She is accepted to Northwestern University in St. Paul, and she wants to major in psychology. So that's her plans. At the end of this term, we felt the Lord leading us again to re-examine the call. So we quieted ourselves and spent time asking, if we don't say no, where do you want us to go? And we started with several ideas, and as we prayed about it, and asked for guidance, a direction became clear. The plan is that we will be stepping into our training department, which is located at JARS in North Carolina, just south of Charlotte. And we've had a void there for the past 4 or 5 years, and we really felt like this is, and our leadership confirmed that this is something that we really need as an organization, to have a representative there helping our pilots and mechanics through the process of getting out to Africa. And so we will be there for the next 3 years serving, and which is 5 hours from here. So, Jamie and Jill are always like, all right, well, we'll figure this out. We'll get you guys back here more often. So we would be honored and love that. As this church has been like home to us. Everybody's like, how did a bunch of Yankees end up down in Georgia? Well, God. We just say God took care of it. He really did. And we are honored to be your missionaries sent by you and serving in your name through Jesus. And we're so thankful. So thank you.
Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. I was just, every time that Pete and Tija are here and any of our other missionaries, I'm always reminded that the majority of Christians around the world don't live like we do. And the church doesn't look like it does here. And because of what we've been blessed with, I'm afraid we've gotten over what God's done for us. And that God's called us to be a part of reaching people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the only reason we need to be here. I mean, wouldn't it have been better if God just saved us and took us to heaven? But he left us here for a reason. God's heart, y'all, is to see people saved. I mean, he killed his own son on the cross to make that happen. And I'm grateful that God's given us the opportunity to be a part of His work around the world. And I pray that God continues to open doors. Y'all know my heart and how God connects the dots for us. And I'm already, just watching that a while ago, I'm already thinking, hey, we can help send that young man to the mission field. Their son-in-law, you know. I mean, what a joy that'd be to get to be a part of sending them. I wish a long time ago in my life I had fully surrendered to the Lord. I do. I'm not saying I didn't surrender most everything, because I did. But I have never surrendered at all. And I wish I had a long time ago. There's coming a day the Bible describes, and I'm not going to preach, I'm just going to, in a minute we're going to have an invitation, but the Bible describes a day to where there is a marriage supper of the Lamb. Big celebration that's going to happen in heaven. And I picture, I mean, you know, at a marriage supper of the Lamb, I figure there's got to be tables. You know, we're going to eat. And a lot of times I picture what that's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to look like. The Bible doesn't give us a picture of that. It just tells us it's going to happen. But I'm thinking that there's got to be seats. And there's got to be food, and there's got to be a table. And I've often wondered what that multitude will look like. The Bible's clear, God will get all the glory. But the Bible's also clear that it's important to God to reward His saints for what they did for Him. I suspect my seats, I'm going to be in an overflow room. And I'm going to watch what's happening on the screen. You can't say it's not going to happen that way. But I suspect somewhere near the front of the line, front of the tables, going to be people like Pete and Tija. Because they said at one time in their life, I'll go. Pete stood right here in 2014, I guess, 15. I've never forgot it. He stood up in front of this church. He said, what will God do with a church who won't say no? I think that question is still valid today. If Faith Church will maintain the attitude that I won't say no, we will not say no. We'll say, yes, Lord. Whatever you tell us to do, we will say yes. What in the world will God do with a church like that? And I can tell you it won't look like what it looks like right now. I want to be the man that won't say no. And I want to be a part of a church that won't say no. I just wonder if anybody else has the same desire. I'm going to ask Annette to come to the piano.